you're ready.
Yeah. Hey, Matt, how are you?
Good. How we doing?
Good, thank you. Just obviously, Illinois got a lot of weapons. How do you go about kind of dealing with them?
Obviously, I think a lot of it starts with, in my opinion, their defense. I think their defense is, really good. They get in transition, um, off of just the defensive glass and, just causing turnovers. I think that if they're scoring a lot of points in transition or they're scoring a lot of points on transition in the offensive glass, it's probably going to be a tough night for you. They dictate a lot through their aggressiveness, their size, their athleticism on the defensive end that creates a lot of offense for them. Then on the offensive end, they obviously have a great guard in Io who can break you down, can make plays, knock down threes, get in the paint, great at getting to the rim and finishing. Kofi is you have to give a lot of time to prepare for him, in terms of what he does and rebounding the ball and posting deep and getting to the free throw line and scoring around the rim. And so he's both those guys are tough covers. And then Frazier, who had a great game against us last year at our place, just knows when to pick his spots. Uses quickness to get to the rim. Obviously, he can, bury threes, and he's got big time range. And so, you have to be there with him. Williams is a great defender, great role player, does a lot of little things. And now he's really worked on his shot to where he's, automatic when you leave him open, knocking shots down. Miller's a guy that can really stretch the defense and knock down shots. He's struggled of late, but he's a good shooter. Sometimes it's hard as a young guy to kind of find your way and kind of blend in when you're a shooter. You want those reps, you want those shots, and with all those weapons that I just talked about, sometimes that's a little bit hard. But he's a really good complement to those guys, and will really be a good player and get into a bigger role as those guys, move on. And but he's dangerous. He's one of those guys that could have 2 or 4 in the game, and all of a sudden he could hit 5 threes and just kind of be the difference in the game. So you have to respect him, and we will. His ability to shoot. So then Curbelo is a big piece of what they do. Just great with the ball, great decision maker, can get to the rim, good passer. Just a really good piece for them, especially after losing Felice. I think Felice did a lot of things for that team last year, and he's doing a lot of those same things for them now.
When you got back to the practice floor after Rutgers, what were your real hot buttons in terms of improving defensively?
Just containing the dribble more than anything. Awareness, lack of awareness at times, like where our help was, and just trying to get everybody to, watch film and see some of the mistakes that we made that we really prepared for. I think that's the most frustrating thing. Sometimes things in the game can kind of present themselves that are very circumstantial, situational, that just, for whatever reason, the game, produces some kind of outlier plays that haven't happened in the past. That really wasn't the case in this game. It's, that they made some shots they don't typically make from a couple people, but also a couple of them were, wide open. A couple of the ones that were contested, and they make them like, you live with those. But our inability to, to keep the ball out of the paint was probably the thing that hurt us the most.
Is there anything you can put your finger on about your ball screen defense right now that simply has to get better? I mean, in terms of how that can improve?
Well, you got to be able to, when the big man says something, you got to do it. Like it's not, schematic. It's like he tells you to go under, go under. He tells you to down it and keep it on the side, down it and keep it on the side. When, we were out there giving commands, that's what's kind of different about this situation. And I'm hearing the big guys give commands and guards aren't reacting to it to do it. So it's not, it's the thing in coaching that happens is when you do something and it doesn't work, are they trying to do what you're asking them to do? If they are, then you got to go back to the drawing board and say, I need to make an adjustment here. But if they're not doing what you're asking them to do, how do you know if it's the right thing or not. Obviously, you have your past history with other teams of doing it, so you got a pretty good feel for it. But like when we give commands, we got to be able to do them, and then our bigs have got to give. We talk about early, loud, and continuous with the commands, and so it's more on us doing our job. And if we'll do our job and stick with it, now we can see how that progresses. And I'm pretty sure if we do that, we're going to be better at what we do, or we wouldn't do it in the first place. But if it not, then that's when you got to be able to make adjustments. We're not in that mode right now. We're just not consistent enough in some basic things. And so you just got to keep drilling.
Right.
You got to keep drilling. It's not what we're doing; it's how we're doing it.
Right. Right. I'm seeing a lot of teams around the Big Ten. Their benches are really animated when guys aren't in the game. They're walk-ons, whoever it might be, or acting kind of like sort of de facto student sections. Has that been an emphasis for you in your program to make sure the guys who are not, or is that something you're seeing what you want from those guys, that they're engaged?
Yeah, I think all the benches, around the country are really getting into it. It's something that's happened in the past where anytime guys got up to celebrate and cheer, referees are waving for them to go down. It makes no sense. It kind of shows you the guys that are making the rules don't understand it and get it. It's like you got to have some passion. You got to have some energy. Like you can, those guys are a big part of your program. You got guys that are over there that are going to sub in and play. You got guys in there that are not going to sub in at all. But like they're a part of your program and they're cheering on your team. And so I've never understood that before, why they're always getting waved to sit down when they're just sitting there cheering for their team. As long as they stay out of bounds, like, who cares? And so this has kind of opened it up to kind of show, like, I think we've kind of seen some benches that are having a lot of fun, and because you got to create your own energy in this situation, and so our guys have done a really good job with it.
Right. Just one last question, real quick, about defense. Is there something else? Is there something that can be adjusted or whatever to get that corner a little bit more closed off? Sometimes the opponents have gotten a lot of threes off that kind of backside corner there, where when the one guy comes in to help off the dribble, that's where I think Mathis got a couple of his and whatnot.
Well, Mathis was 8 for 28 from three.
What's that?
Mathis was 8 for 28 from three. So like when you play percentages, if you can go through it, and like you're speaking in theory, but I can go through all 5 that he got, and so like guys are in help trying to stop the ball from getting to the paint. And then they're contesting him on his shot. And so one was on the back end of a post double, which was the right thing for us to do, trying to keep the ball out of the paint. One was just a lack of concentration, and we just kind of fell asleep, to be frank with you. Then we were just a little bit late getting out there. So like that isn't in theory, like when you're sitting there saying fundamentally, you're in help a little bit too much is the way I look at some of those things. The post double's not it, because that's, we're trying to double the post to keep it out of there, make him pass. They get into that rotation and he's at the end of it, so be it. But the other one is just more of, you have to be able to help in basketball, but you can't live in help. We're living in help too much. We're getting beat too much. Yeah. And now, like, okay, what do you want? Do you want Monte Mathis's contested 3 when he's 8 for 28 after 10 games? Or do you want Geo Baker getting a layup? Like, and like the one thing about those shots is it keeps you off the free throw line. It keeps you out of foul trouble, keeps you out of the bonus. Like there's some positives about that. But ultimately, what do you want? You want to keep the ball in front of you so the guy doesn't have to help at all, so he doesn't have a layup, and then he doesn't have a jumper either. But when you keep putting yourself in those positions, and so we got to have a little bit more, not a little bit more, we got to have more pride and more determination for guys to get guys out of rhythm shooting it and then contain them. That's what good players do against other good players, is that they're able to stop them in both areas and then make them score over them, especially late in the shot clock.
I'm good. Thanks, Matt.
No problem.
Marvin.
Hey, Matt, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Is the 3-point success from your opponents here recently, is that just a direct result of not being able to contain the dribble and players getting too deep? And as you mentioned, the help that you guys are being forced to do?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, I would say that, there's like when you go and you watch each play, like there's times guys like miss like open shots. Then there's guys that sometimes will make tough shots. One's probably going to outweigh the other from a percentage standpoint, but you can get into kind of an outlier type game to where like, you get a guy that's made 8 threes in 10 games, or how many games they played, and that makes 5. Or McKay, he hasn't made very many, but he hasn't taken very many, and he makes 3. So they have 11, but those guys have 8 between them. Like if I was going to stick with people, I would stick with the 2 guys more, Young and Baker, that both made 1. And Baker made his the first shot of the game. And so those are the guys that have made more threes in their career and been more consistent from those areas. So we weren't giving it to them. One was a breakdown with McKay. One was just a lack of a rotation. And so another one was a contested shot that I'll live with him taking that he just made. So you got to give him, credit for it. So, yeah, it's not really for us. It's when it's everything. Is like, when you're getting beat in ball screen defense just because like you're not, really taking the command and doing it, and then you're behind the play, or somebody beats me off the dribble, and then I'm behind the play. Like you have to have built-in help so they can't get to the paint. And when you do that and you overhelp, and you stop the basketball, especially when 2 people have to do one man's job, now that ball moves pretty quick. Now you're into rotations, and that's what you want to try to stay out of. That's why you see us switch a lot more. We double the post. We switch some things away from the ball. We switch 1 through 4 ball screens, not always, but most of the time. And you want to keep out of those rotations, because once you get into rotations, people that know how to play and people that know how to pass and shoot, they're gonna make you pay. And so I think that's, for us, is more important. You work a lot on rotations because it's going to happen, but you don't want it to happen a lot. So those are just some things that we have to, to be better at and keep working at. And like we've talked about, we have a wide range of defensive experience, and but we have to have more defensive production. We have to have guys that are just simply better at their awareness, simply better at doing their job. And then at times just, recognizing what's going on, especially if it's like late clock stuff and where your help is, and containing the dribble and knowing the strengths and the nuances of your opponent.
I just wanted to ask about Ethan Morton, just where from a conditioning level and kind of how he feels physically.
He's getting better. There's no doubt about that. Like he's a guy that's kind of ended up being the odd man out, and that wasn't how we really had it pigeonholed to start the season. You still have to be productive and you still have to earn that spot. And he really helped us when we were shorthanded earlier in the year and got put in a tough spot because he condition-wise wasn't ready. But now he's a lot better, but he's kind of in that numbers crunch. And but we need to get him on the court more. I say it every game, and then I don't do it. But and then when he subs in, I'm subbing him in to get him minutes instead of having him with a group that is going to help him too. So sometimes he's not in there with the most, I should say, the best group for him. But like I'm giving a guy who's playing more, a rest or a blow, and now he's playing 3, 4, 5 minutes in the game. And I like that with guys that don't play very much. I'd rather them play their minutes like together, so like you can get out there and hopefully, kind of get a feel for everything. But it hasn't been fair to him, and that's it's unfortunate. But hopefully we can get him some more minutes, because he does some things that could really help us. His ability to pass the basketball would really help us.
But I mean, from a conditioning standpoint, is it kind of going to be an uphill struggle for him the rest of the year?
Yeah, I don't think he's ever going to get maybe by the end of the year he could get back to where he was, but it's more of having to play without him or practice without him, and then we have a lot of adjustments with Eric coming back and Jaden coming back, and then him, and so you get to where guys are going to play more because of the situation, and then they get a little bit of an advantage there. And but you just keep working and keep plugging. But his conditioning is better. It's not something that's not keeping him out right now. It's more, like I said earlier, that more situational, more circumstantial.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Actually, I had one more real quick, if you don't mind.
No problem.
Just Are you seeing the kind of balance you'd like to see from Jaden in terms of how he's getting his shots? He seems like he's done some really good things for you, coming off screens, attacking closeouts, things like that. Do you want him being a little more aggressive with his dribble sometimes, or?
I wanted him to make good decisions and take good shots, more than anything. Like, I thought some of those threes that he took were good shots. They just didn't go down. I think he had a pull up air ball one time that, for him, it's really kind of knowing what we're doing too,
Right.
like, and kind of like understanding how things are, people are defending and executing plays. So then it puts him in a better position. And, if he can execute better and get himself in better situations, his ability to score and his ability to get by people will really come out. And that's kind of where he is. He's at a kind of early stage in his career of understanding and taking what we're running or what we're drawing up to use to his advantage. But no, I thought he did some good things the other night. He had some nice drives and, got to the basket and was aggressive. And like I said, he needs to balance that with some of those shots that he took on the perimeter, because they're good shots and he's a good shooter. Even though his percentages aren't great, that's going to balance out. He's a pretty good shooter.